which is prone to the landslide. For last 5 years, the file is settling from this department to that department. No decision has been taken. Now really when the worst has happened, now we are pumping in crores of and thousands of crores of rupees. For what? For rescue. What about the lives lost? What about the people died? Are they going to come back? Had that 500 crore reached in time, much could have been saved.
But let's also not forget the fact that a lot of commercialization has taken place in this area, which means attracting more people over there.
Exactly.
I mean, majority of them, of course, they are being tagged as pilgrims, but a lot of other activities also take place.
There has to be some restriction somewhere.
Right.
Now we are banning the yatras for another 3 years. Instead of banning that this time, means the entire nation is saying no, for those who want to go to Badrinath, they will not be able to go to Badrinath for next 3 years. But instead of that, they should have restricted the movement of the pilgrimage. See, thousands of people go, vehicles move, they create vibrations.
Mr. Wankhede, another important element, a very crucial element, probably we are not hitting on the environment debate a lot, but that is something which I think each one of us will have to certainly and seriously consider after this particular calamity.
You played with the nature, nature played with you.
Absolutely.
It has just given you the return. Did not claim the rains and this thing and that the river floods and the flash floods and the landsliding. Don't blame them. You have done so much of damage to the ecology there. That is the reason now everybody is facing for that.
And we have actually, do you in a way also believe that the governments have also allowed it to happen? Because everybody is getting their
everybody is responsible for that. Everybody, central government is responsible for that. State government are responsible for that. The industry which is doing commercialization there is responsible for that.
So I think,
and virtually they have threatened, if you don't take, then we will have to take the matter into our hands. Now some via media they are trying to build up. Now I think the first meeting they constituted the group of ministers under Chidambaram chairmanship. Now they came out with the idea, what the newspapers have reported, that the 3 retired Supreme Court judges will form a panel which will go into the complaints against the CBI. Then the group of secretaries will decide when to or where to give the permission to prosecute the officers above joint secretary and above. Ministers are still kept out of the preview of CBI. Now there are so many things. Again, now these are the committees they are appointing, but who will they have the time frame for that? There are lot many cases where years have passed. CBI is being asking for the permission to prosecute the officer and they are not getting the permission. So ultimately, some or the other way, that what complete autonomy we talk of, I don't see in near future.
Okay, the Congress ministers would be really liking to seek a quick decision on the Telangana issue. It is believed that the union ministers from Andhra feel clarity on the statehood must come before the Lok Sabha polls. But is the government in a position to really give its final stand or present its final stand on the Telangana issue, since it's both an emotive as well as a
I personally feel, if you see a Congress point of view, because Andhra Pradesh is concerned, Telangana is concerned, it's the Congress party which is going to lose or gain out of that. Now recent changes in the general secretaries in the Congress, the Andhra Pradesh charge has been given to Digvijay Singh, and I think he has been given that charge with the motive to come out with some solution on Telangana. Now problem with Telangana is not just making it a separate state. The minority commissioner, the minister yesterday addressed the media, and he has come out with the idea that a development corporation for the work board has to be formed. Now basically the idea is to get more fundings to the work board.
Okay.
And work boards in India has huge properties with them. Now those properties to be commercially developed. To do this job, this corporation is being formed. And I think if things go in a right spirit and it is being well commercialized for generating fund for the board and not for the politicians, then really it will give some financial strength to the work boards.
Okay. India and America have signed some education-related pacts. We will talk in detail about Mr. John Kerry's visit and other aspects, but let's talk about education in particular because it relates to the sector as well as the job creation, the very important question that is related to the education sector. How significant, how crucial do you think is going to be at this juncture?
See, how much impact it is going to make, it is the only time to tell.
And when they come in, then you have a majority of them.
But the problem is the dropouts.
Yeah.
Problem is of the dropouts, and when they don't have proper education, that is the reason the last this 5-year plan, 13th 5-year plan, a lot of money is being earmarked for the skill development project, and those projects will, when really if you look back, it is again Mahatma Gandhi's theory of 3 hours. Reading, writing, arithmetic, he used to say, at least you should have 3 hours, and the rest of the thing that you should have some skill, whether it is a carpentry, whether it is a brick making, whether it is tailoring, some of the other art you should have to sustain in a village. Now, going back to that, the dropouts from 10th, 11th, even from some graduates, sector will improve. For example, there are centers that they're small tourist centers where you don't have people serving in the hotel which really have a degree from the catering institute.
Yes.
But if that 10th dropout is being trained how to be a waiter, they'll be able to give you better service than what we have today.
Well, we have got different and good ideas, in fact, to you know inject new life into this sector. But one will have to see how these arrangements can really make a difference. We'll take a very short break in perspective. After the break, we'll analyze all the international news stories. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We'll now analyze all the international news stories in Worldview. Continue to discuss the international news stories with Mr. Ashok Wankhede. Mr. Wankhede, let's start the discussion with the developments in Afghanistan. We know that there were attacks on the presidential palace and the CIA base in Kabul, and this is certainly not a good sign because they would certainly cast a shadow on the proposed peace talks.
Yeah, the US man in Pak and looking after the Pak in Afghanistan, James Boding, he is to talk with the Taliban people, leadership of the Taliban, in the next week. And before that, when Karzai's residence has been attacked, at I think 7th as well.
Okay, and you know, yesterday, in fact, the Syria envoy Lakhdar Brahimi also said that a conference on ending the war in Syria would not take place in July as he had hoped and called to end on the United States and Russia to help contain the conflict, and they must, US and Russia should contain the war.
Syria has been more internationalized now.
Yeah.
The Americans want to enter because of the reports of the use of chemical weapons. So it is not a serious problem anyway now. It is going to, if America steps in, the Russia, they are also approaching the Russia. Russia and America are not in good terms for last 1 week. There is a cold war again between America and Russia. So Syrian problem in days to come, I see it is more going on international level, and many other players being involved in Syria now.
But what about this new thing between Russia and the US? We know that Snowden is stuck at the Moscow airport, and the defiant Russia has refused to arrest or extradite Snowden, who's the whistleblower in the prison.
As far as Snowden is concerned, the Puneet has made a clear statement that he has not entered the Russian border technically. He is on the transit visa, so no papers have been asked for. They said that when he has not entered the Russia, technically we cannot extradite him. So from there he is likely to move to Cuba. That is what report says. But how, when? I think it is between the Russia and the other Cuba. They will decide how to make this movement.
You know, there are again, yeah.
But at the same time, when the threats were being given by the Americans to the Russians, I think Russians have not taken them very seriously. Russians took the stand, and when they took the position, he was shifted from Hong Kong to Moscow.
You know, but
before the Defense Minister A.K. Antony's visit to China.
Okay. So the timing
So
you're saying
timing
is very
is very
crucial.
important.
Okay.
And this time when Menon is going, it has got lot many issues to be addressed. Not only border issues, there will also be issues regarding trade. There will be also issues regarding the international issues, which being in Asian countries, the China and India would like to address together. And of course, border issue is what we are being regularly fighting for. So there is always, every third week we find a report that Chinese army has come in, Indian army has violated. So these reports, somewhere they will have to come out with the solution. But the border issue as it is there, I don't find immediate solution on the issue. Only some temporary measures will be taken. Some cosmetic changes
Will be made. Right. Okay, so not much can be expected from this round too, but in China, in fact, there's a very wonderful exercise that's going on. It's called self-criticism exercise by Chinese leaders. The ruling party themselves, they had a session where they had analyzed their own, the campaigning as well as the public trust and confidence that they now gain, and what kind of exercise should be conducted in China. We'll analyze all the business-related news stories. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We'll now analyze all the business-related news stories in Bazaar Buzz. And to discuss all the business-related news stories, we are joined by Annapurna Singh, who's the special correspondent with Deccan Herald. Welcome to the program. Let's start the discussion with SEBI now easing the norms for foreign portfolio funds to lure precious dollars. How important is going to be this move?
It's important because at this time, after that US QE program, the Fed's initial hint that it may withdraw the QE program, and that is the $85 billion per month bond buying, FIIs have got more attraction towards the US market. Obviously, their bond yields have risen quite substantially, and in relation very weak. Why we have rupee fluctuating to this level, going down, weakening to this level, is that we have very high CAD. As you know, in the December quarter, our current account deficit was 6.7% of the GDP, which is very high, historically high, and high by any standards of economy. So we have high inflation. Our WPI inflation is lowering, coming down, coming to the comfortable zone as given by RBI, but our CPI inflation is much higher. It is close to 10% still, and you see, CPI inflation is something which is affecting you and I as a commoner. It is not WPI which is affecting, it is CPI which really raises or brings down the inflation expectation in the economy. So CPI and WPI, WPI is coming down, but CPI is going way upward, and the gap between the two are widening. So these are called fundamentals. Our deficits are current, but you know, we are too much fixated on one point. Like we have started curbing gold, so curbs are coming from everywhere now. RBI is curbing, government is curbing. Yesterday also you must have heard that RBI has extended its rules to the rural banks, which are not going to sell gold coins, etc.
That's right.
So these fixations will not work. You have to work on fundamentals. You have to work on inflation. You have to see that CPI inflation is going to come down. If CPI inflation comes down, CPI inflation not coming down is entirely in government hands. You see, your supply side measures are not adequate. Now you must have, after that Uttarakhand disaster, vegetable prices have suddenly gone up.
Right.
Why? Vegetable prices should not go up. If your transportation is doing well, your vegetable prices should remain. I mean, your transportation, your infrastructure is not up to mark at all to take care of these kind. Inflation is more because India is a granary of food and vegetables. We do not have any dearth of rice or wheat or whatever. Why we are suffering from inflation? Because we are our infrastructure, our supply mechanism is not good. Somewhere there is margin problem of wholesalers and retailers. So these kind of small little things, if are looked at without getting fixated too much on gold, we can have our inflation in control. If our inflation is in control, it can take care of many deficits and you know,
the concerns that government has, you know. That's a very, very important point that you just made, Annapurna. Let's talk about the FDI cap also. Government is planning to lift the FDI cap in some sectors by mid-July. This is what the finance minister said yesterday.
Yeah, finance minister has said second to third week of July. Here again, you see India's FDI penetration is lowering in past 2-3 years. India is not receiving as much FDI as it should. In Reliance, Vedanta buying in Cairn, its local subsidiary, and prior to that, the Videocon, that mega 11 billion offer in its Hutchison in India. So already existing, which are doing well, which are going up, FDI is coming only in that, not in greenfield. That should cause a concern. So raising the cap, is it really? It is essential, raising the cap, because we have age-old caps now. But is raising the cap only going to solve the problem? No, it is not. What here also you require is you please, your rules are very, very tough. For example, you see the POSCO project, the $12 billion POSCO project, which is going to produce steel in one of the India's poorest states in Orissa, is hanging for about 1 decade. Why? Why it is hanging? Why the government has made this rule so stringent, so as to, you know, you have to come in the back end, and then what is this? You are only scaring away the investors by laying down these rules. You cannot depend endlessly on foreign investors to correct your infrastructure. It is your duty. You correct the infrastructure. Nowhere in the world investors have to come and prepare the infrastructure and then invest in the projects.
True.
You have to prepare your own infrastructure before calling them. You see, one World Bank report had said that
it's believed that Walmart wants certain things. It wants clear definition of group companies, clarity in mandatory investment in back-end infrastructure, and 30% mandatory sources from the SMEs. There are other
exactly. These are the concerns they are going to
for.
let us. We can only hope for the best. But see, I will also give you an example. IKEA came to this country. We gave permission to IKEA. Now, IKEA wanted to open coffee shop inside its own stores. What was wrong in it? Why did it take over 2 months to give permission to IKEA to open coffee shops in its own stores? How were we losing on this ground? We can only hope that these kind of more interactions, if they present their concern and we understand our red tapeism, our rules are really very, very sticky, very strict,
and these are specifically to enhance the domestic investment also, because we have got investors even in our country.
Yeah.
To ease the rules will actually give some sort of boost to them too, because they would also like to make investments, provided they are giving more ease norms. Which in itself is a big trap for an investor today. Okay, let's talk about the Petroleum Ministry. It's going to consider gas producer price in new regime to be $8.55. Now that's something which the Petroleum Ministry has talked about yesterday. Does it really make any big difference? It says that it's the row over the proposed increase in national gas prices that is set to flare up because of this admission that the Petroleum Ministry has talked about.
Yeah, it is. Left parties are opposing it, as you know, that this is going to benefit the Reliance Industries more and other private players. But the point here is that as we talk our FDI and FII coming and investing in our country, we also have to see that our price mechanism is not archaic. Our price mechanism has to be such that producers come here. Now we are importing a lot of oil and gas to feed our domestic demand, which equivalents to Indian rupees 2.5 lakh. Now this is just a draft norm. It is in a very initial stage. And just as in India, we float a draft, we bring out with some initial norms, then it goes to public domain. There are a lot of discussions held, and you know, after that a decision is taken. This is no decision, and let me tell you that it should not scare away Indians. But then, every country has its own problems. A lot of migration is happening to UK, so that country is also scared, and there will be job problems. There will be a lot of people on shortage of land, if
Several problems.
several problems will emerge, civic communities, but mostly the employment problem is. So that country is also say your visa regime should be transparent. Why they scare is that people go there and then do not come back. So but this visa is not for everybody. They have said that they will go case by case. They'll consider it case by case. And if you are 19 years of age, you take a visa, you go and stay in that country, you finish your education, and then you are employed there, you do not come back. Obviously, this kind of scare is there, but you know, this is not a welcome step. And just as we invite everybody, and we have not much restrictions on foreigners coming here and accessing this market, this job market, whatever studies, they should also not have restrictions for India. We should not be put in that list, whatever critical list they have prepared. But all said and done, it is only on the draft stage.
And one has to certainly
they
see
have
as
to,
to how
yeah, it may not,
now.
and I don't think it will for us the restrictions will be as high.
Okay. On that note, it's time here to thank you, Ms. Annapurna Singh. Quite a pleasure having you here. We'll take a very quick break. In we'll analyze all those post-related news stories. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Perspective. We'll now analyze all those post-related news stories in master stroke. And to discuss all those post-news stories, we are joined by a journalist and famous commentator, Mr. Harpal Singh. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Baby. Let's start the discussion, unlike the other days, not with cricket but with Wimbledon. So it's about Divij Sharan and Purav Raja, who have lost to Nicholas Monroe and Simon Stadler in round 1.
They should have won the match. Actually, they were leading by 2 sets. And this shows they have a long way to go. After winning 2 sets, actually they were making debut. They are the first Indian youngsters to qualify for the Wimbledon. And that was a great achievement. But having won the first 2 sets in that main round, they squandered the day and lost the next 3. That means they have a long way to go. They could not hold on to the nerves. At this stage of the tournament, when you are leading 2-0 and your opponents are not a great shake, they are not the well-known doubles players. Not that the Indians were well-known, but they did very well because Indians were playing together for long. That was a American and a German combination. So to win, after winning, she is going great guns. Our sister is not playing, but she has won. This is the 5th. If she wins this time, then she will be winning this Wimbledon for 5th time, and that will be her 18th Grand Slam. And she is in great form. She has won French Open, and she's just doing whatever seems to be going right for her. Except the statement she made about a rape victim in USA that created a lot of controversy, and she had to apologize. But on the field, she has been in a tremendous form. As far as Djokovic is concerned, he also won the first set, but first match, though it was tough for him. And he made a very interesting statement, Djokovic. He said the defeat of Nadal shows that nobody is invincible, and everybody has to be ready for any eventuality. And his explanation for Nadal's defeat was that when you play against an unknown player has nothing to lose, and a famed player has everything to lose. So famed player is always under pressure, and an unknown player who is pitted against Nadal or Federer or Djokovic or Murray, and he's playing before 10,000 people or 12,000 people, he gives his best. And it is the famed player or well-known player who is under pressure. And defeat of Nadal shows that no, don't take any opponent lightly.
Right.
So Djokovic at the moment seems to be doing well. Let's see what happens now.
That's right. So he's also in high spirits now. Let's talk about cricket.
He's the greatest captain ever produced, the greatest team ever produced. Everything is greatest.
Dhoni
and
has done wonders.
Dhoni has done wonders. Dhoni is the captain pool. Everybody, rest are fools. This is how it is.
That's Ganguly and Dravid too.
Oh, no, but there's a good line in some TV channel. Dhoni is cool, rest are fools. But that is how it is. But the question here is that one victory and we go gaga over that fellow, and this gentleman was on the verge of being sacked.
One defeat, we don't even mind dissecting all of it.
No, remember this thing, just before last year, before this Australian tour or Australian trip to India, they were virtually demand that he should be sacked. Not a full match. I'm not taking away the credit from Indian team. Indian team played brilliantly. But that, remember that was in a full final. How can you have a final 50 over final reduced to 20 over. It's like playing a football match of 19-minute match. You're reducing to 15-minute match, or 100-meter race to 25-yard race, and then say you are world champion. You can't. But now because everybody is saying barring Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid is saying, Ganguly is saying, Kapil Dev is saying, whosoever has given a chance on a mic or interview, he is saying there is the best possible team. But I'm waiting for the day when if he loses a match or loses the tournament, everybody will start. So we make heroes and then reduce to zeros. We are a very temperamental society.
We are a very temperamental society. Okay, let's talk about this too. New Zealand has beaten England by 5 runs.
I think England deserved it because this match which was played is basically, I don't know, even the media says that why they played. And because of this match, there was no reserve day for the Champions Trophy final. If this match had not been there, they would have been a Champions Trophy reserve day. So we might have seen a better final next day. But because of this match, there were no reserve day. And finally, what happened? They tried to be very smart and they lost to New Zealand at home and Oval. And it seemed to be a very exciting match, but defeat is a defeat. This is second successive defeat. 2020, they lost to India. Though it is Champions Trophy, but that is 2020 match.
Right.
And they
lost to New Zealand too.
New Zealand too. It's a long way to go for England. I think England cricket is sometimes they show they are good in as far as Test cricket is concerned, but in 50-50 or smaller versions, they have a long way to go.
Okay. And what about Pakistan, who will be hosting South Africa and Sri Lanka?
Pakistan is in crisis. No team is willing to go to Pakistan. There's a security situation is such, and with the killing of 9 foreigners there.